You know you're on the right path when you can't not do it. Cooking is now like a revolutionary act.
Yeah, right.
And within a matter of months, if not weeks, we went from barely surviving to thriving. Like the changes in our body, it was like my DNA was literally just turned on.
Welcome to the Merchants of Joy podcast. We love to showcase people who bring joy to the world through their businesses. And we have travelled 1,000 kilometres from Brisbane to Sydney to come here and enjoy this beautiful cup of nutritious golden elixir, otherwise known as a cup of bone broth. And I have to say it is exquisite. And this was created, as well as this lovely store that I'm standing in front of, the Broth Bar and Larder, created by Soulla Chamberlain. And Soulla is our very first guest on today's podcast series of the Merchants of Joy. So we hope you enjoy the interview, sit back, relax, and thank you for watching. Welcome to the Merchants of Joy podcast. We are here today with the lovely Soulla Chamberlain, who has very kindly allowed us to conduct this interview in her beautiful home. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate that.
Absolute pleasure.
So Soulla, I just want to tell to our audience how we discovered you. My husband was scrolling through Instagram one night, and this is probably at least 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago on Instagram, and we were sitting up in bed and I was getting drowsy reading a book, and then he just sort of stopped in his tracks and he nudged me awake. Great. And he showed me the phone, and there was the most delightful image of you and your gorgeous children, and you were holidaying in Crete. And I think the name of the location was Maramara Beach or Maramara Beach.
Yeah.
And you know, you were saying that the distance you had to travel at least 2 hours, and then
order taxi.
Right. And it was but just the most glorious spot, and it just looked
idyllic,
amazing. And you guys are just sparkle, spectacular health and joy. It was so beautiful to see that, and that really got my attention. So I thought, right, what's that Instagram? I've got to follow that too. And then ever since then, we've so enjoyed your commentary and your expertise that you're so generous with in sharing with everyone who's keen to know, and it's just been a delight. So again, thank you so much. We can't believe we're here. It's a dream come true. So I guess in your journey with reclaiming your own health, so you had a situation where you realised that something had to be addressed, and can you walk us through that, what actually happened when you finally came to think something's not feeling right, and it was affecting all aspects of your life at that time? So,
so I guess my first big wake-up call happened in over 2 decades ago now, 1999. I've been working at a top-tier law firm for a few years, pressure cooker environment, long hours, sedentary lifestyle, indoors, artificial lighting, takeout food, all the stuff that we consider kind of normal. And I had a big breakdown. My body just could not cope, and I ended up in hospital and was out of action for about 2 months. So my immune system was shot. I had recurring migraine headaches from osteoskeletal pain. And I just knew that I had to change my life, but I didn't know at the time what that would look like. I mean, back then, there weren't all the health and wellness books and apps and podcasts and mentors that there are now. I just kind of like remember lying there in that hospital bed thinking, okay, my body's not coping with this. I need to do things differently, but I'm not quite sure what I need to do. So it kind of like in a way forced me to sort of tap into my intuition, but I just realized back then, well, I suppose I didn't realize back then just how disconnected from my intuition and my body I was. I guess my lifestyle had just, really numbed me off from that. Like, painkillers, pharmaceuticals, prescription medication, high grain diet, long hours, stress, nature divorcement in an unhappy relationship, all those things kind of just numb you off from really, your true self and who you really are. So I guess the past 2 decades has been this incredible journey for me of discovering who I really am and, what really makes us tick and thrive so we can be a better version of ourselves and the most possible, vibrant version of ourselves, which is why we're here on the planet. But I did, that 26-year-old lying in that hospital bed, I did decide to make some little baby steps which profoundly altered the course of my life. So the first thing I did was I left the law firm and worked as a lawyer still, but in-house at a corporate, because I didn't know what else I was going to do. So that created a bit more work-life balance. So that was a great first step. The second thing I did was that I started Iyengar yoga, which back then was radically alternative. And that was life-changing for me because it made me appreciate just how disconnected from my body I was, and it enabled me to step into a high level of consciousness, at least physically at first, and then, you know, the beautiful soul nourishing community that was associated with it was just lovely. And then the next decision I made was to start bushwalking. I mean, no one told me to do yoga or start bushwalking, but it just kind of felt right. It was just kind of like a gasp of fresh air. It's like, okay. And then from there, every weekend I would just get out into nature and do the most amazing bushwalks around Victoria where I lived at the time. And then from there I went further afield and ended up doing some amazing treks all around the world and really getting out of my comfort zone. And my time in third world countries really kind of made me, you know, appreciate gratitude like nothing else. And it was my time in Nepal that really opened the doors up to Tibetan Buddhism and spirituality. And so I started feeling like I was becoming slowly a more whole and complete person. And I was just really feeling the disconnect at that point between my work, my relationship, just modern society with its values of sort of consumerism and fast food and materialism and excess and waste, and it just didn't sit right with me, and I just felt that I just intuitively was yearning for something more meaningful and real. And so I started making decisions like, you know, swapped out all the processed foods, so I kicked all that, spend more time in nature, moving my body. So I definitely was on the path to wellness, but I still had a long way to go. And then my second big wake-up call happened about 6 years later at 33 after the birth of my first baby. So we were vegetarian at the time because I thought that we were being healthy being vegetarian. So the government very much steers us onto a low-fat, high-grain diet. So I thought we were being super healthy by eating no fats at all and a high-grain diet. So I was vegetarian in like 6 years preceding my pregnancy or throughout my pregnancy, breastfeeding while raising our baby as a vegetarian. But when you ended up in hospital at 11 months with bronchial pneumonia and rounds of antibiotics, I sort of stood dead in my tracks. And there's nothing like, you know, that as a wake-up call as a mother to think, okay, is it our diet? Okay, is it what we're putting in and on our body or not putting in our body that's directly contributing to this, you know, health crises? And I was still labouring with a lot of osteoskeletal issues. And it was through the work of my naturopath at the time. She introduced me to Weston A. Price and nutrient-dense traditional whole foods, and that all traditional societies the world over were eating animal products that were really rich in vitamins A, D and K2, you know, things like organ meats, the fat of the animal, bone broth, you know, fermented foods and drinks, you know, wild seafood. And, you know, for a long time, I think a year I was just, you know, resisted that because I ran a story in my head that it was unethical to eat animals, and I realise now how ignorant that argument is. But I guess, you know, 12 months later, I raised the white flag and I just went, okay, let's give this a go. But I went out into the marketplace in Sydney, you know, 13 years ago, and no one was making and selling bone broth or chicken liver pate or, you know, activated nuts or fermented foods and drinks. Certainly no kombucha or beet kvass on the market back then. There was no slow cooked casseroles. So desperation breeds creativity. What did I do? I just got back into the kitchen and I just started making this food. And within a matter of months, if not weeks, we went from barely surviving to thriving. Like the changes in our body, it was like my DNA was literally just turned on. You know, and for the first time I just felt like, oh, I just feel so physically and emotionally, mentally alive. And then, you know, all medications were kicked. You know, baby then never got sick again. Second baby was born with no issues, and, you know, she's 12 years old, never really been sick in her life. So back at that time, you know, I started making all this food, and then basically it was persistent friends that insisted on buying, you know, just make a little bit more extra pate or bone broth, you know, for me, or some extra sauerkraut for me. And then it was friends of friends who came knocking at the door, and the circle just kept expanding until one mother's helper over the years eventually turned into 16.
So I can imagine when you were 26 and, you know, you're quite young, that must have been quite frightening as well to have a whole medical staff there who weren't quite able to ask you the right questions or appropriately diagnose you in a way that was something you could tangibly work on yourself to heal your body.
Well, there was no reference or questions asked as what food are you eating? What are you drinking? Are you drinking, you binge drinking, you're having tap water, are you happy in your relationship? Are you happy in your work? Are you stressed out of your brain? Are you moving your body? What products are you putting on your skin in terms of personal care? Products are you spraying around your house? All these things that profoundly influence our health were completely overlooked because we have very much in the West this mentality of there's a pill for every ill.
For everything, yeah. And all those cooperative components, if you don't notice, I don't think people have lost the art of really inherently listening to their bodies, and you just ignore it. And there is a pill for everything until there's a point where it just reaches boiling point, you're just about to erupt and the body says, nah, can't be doing this anymore.
Yep. So all those symptoms are what we call the canaries in the coal mine.
Yeah, right,
and they're the body's way of expressing evolutionary mismatch. So they're the body's way of saying, hey, I'm not quite happy. If you keep doing this, the eczema's still going to be there, or the migraine headache's still going to be there, or the back pain, or the lack of period, or the this or the that, and so really understanding why is that happening in the first place and getting to the root cause of that rather than taking a pharmaceutical band-aid when the root cause is still persisting and will still be there. So I guess, my first taste of that was when I had the worst case of cystic acne any dermatologist in Queensland had ever seen when I was 18. And of course, what do? They put me on the pill and they put me on a drug called Roaccutane, which has hideous side effects. And it contains really toxic levels of vitamin A. It did clear up my skin. So at first I thought this is wonderful, but guess what happened? The minute I stopped it, the acne came back and the side effects persisted. And that was my first taste of pharmaceuticals seem like that they're just a band-aid. They haven't actually fixed the underlying problem. Whereas if the doctor said, are you stressed? What are you eating? Are you eating, ultra-processed food? Let's have a look at your gut. There was no mention of the word gut microbiome and, how the gut-skin connection. So really looking at the underlying factors that cause these canaries in the coal mine is just so important for your health. But as you said, we're so disconnected from our bodies because everything, we do in the West is just really designed to dumb us down and numb us off. So, I think for me, this journey of being on this planet is really connecting with who we really are to get onto that path of leading a more conscious life and tapping into our intuition.
Yeah, because any form of ill health has such a profound impact on your emotional state, which again, there's medication for all that as well. And it's just, from my own experience as well, emotionally, the impact eating healthily, beautiful foods made from scratch, using organic ingredients and just omitting all nasties, and that comes in the form of the seed oils, the sugars, synthetic products, all that sort of thing. And it just occurred to me, that sense of well-being that just wants to float up as soon as you give your body the opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's a magical feeling. I find nowadays there are starting to occur to me and think, geez, I just feel good. And I can't think of any particular instance in the day, or it's not based on any external condition or your environment. You just inherently feel great.
Yeah.
And you're just able to handle stress better and just deal with what life presents you with daily. And sure enough, there's always going to be some sort of challenge, as we know. But there is an equipment in place in your resilience that is fully fueled and ready to take on anything when your health is optimum. Yeah, and so that's just your birthright. There's a lovely quote that you mention in your website, and I'm going to read it out because it's just came to me like a truth bullet. I just love this. So it's here. It is our birthright to be the very best version of ourselves and to shine our brightest light. But without a solid foundation of health, you have nothing, and you will only ever be a fraction of what you can truly be. And I think that's more prevalent now than ever in light of COVID, etc. But just getting back to how you established your business as well, that defining moment when you just knew, that's it.
Yeah.
Law, no more. I have to have this opportunity
Yeah.
and take it by the horns and just pursue it full time. Was that quite exciting and freeing at the same time, or was there any? It could be quite scary, I suppose. But did you feel there was any risk in going down that path, or it was just such a domineering sort of not pressure, but the onus was there? Yeah.
It was a pull. So I remember distinctly there was a point in time I was standing in my kitchen with my babies around my ankles because they were just glued to me. And I had a list of all the people that put their orders in for pate that week, because I would just back then send out an email to everyone I knew in Sydney, making pate this week, who would like some. And I had the list of people and I had my babies around them, and I'd make the pate and plonk them on the bench and open their mouths like little birds and feed them. And I just distinctly remember thinking, oh crap, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. I can't imagine going back ever and working as a corporate lawyer. Like, my life now is going to be this. It's making and sharing nourishing whole foods. And I was just so pulled to it. And you know you're on the right path when you can't not do it. Like, I was just, you know, and truth be told, I was married at the time, so I did have the support of my husband, so I didn't have that pressure of starting a small business without financial support. So my situation is probably a little bit different to other people, but it was a distinct knowing the Lord doesn't set my soul on fire, and it does for some people, and that's awesome. And I just, you know, I wish it did for me because it's probably a lot more lucrative. But that's just not my path in this lifetime. So it was just this pull of just knowing how wonderful this food just so beautifully healed myself and my family, and just wanting to share that with the world and empower and inspire other people to learn how to make it themselves and to consume it and make, you know, really beautiful, nourishing food very simply and easily in their kitchens too. So I guess for me, Star Anise Organic Whole Foods never ever really started out as a business. It was my passion project to heal myself and my family. And then from there it was sharing that with close friends and then friends of friends. And I think because I never set out to start a business is why it became so successful, because people could see this lady doesn't need the money. Like, you know, she's married, she's got a nice house, living in Bronte, she's doing this, she's running these classes, you know, she's up all night making the sauerkraut, you know, rolling the balls, putting on the bone broth, you know, never set out to start a business. It was just, you know, really passionate about it. And when people see that passion, I think the profits just naturally flow incidentally as a natural byproduct of that.
Or an energy there that people are just like moths to a flame. So yes, show me. Yeah. Because have you found it interesting? I imagine all the people you've helped who have just turned their life around. And do people need to learn how to cook from scratch? Because I grew up with parents who were always working, but my mother was always one to make sure that there was a homemade meal at some juncture in the week, you know, whether it had to be leftovers from the night before but we were always introduced to how to prepare that for yourself. But by modern standards, are you noticing that people will come to you and they've got a skillet in one hand, some protein in the other, and they don't know how the two go?
For 100%.
Basic in
100%. We've
skills.
Lost that. Like, we've become so disconnected from our food that cooking is now like a revolutionary act. You know? And it's something that, you know, traditional societies would teach the next generation how to care for themselves. And it's so integral in caring for yourself, knowing how to eat. I think knowing how to buy, to shop, and then to bring it home and to prepare nourishing foods is the single most important act you can do for your health.
And it's a skill that has to be taught in schools, I think.
We
introduce it to
we had home ec,
kids.
but I don't know if they do that anymore.
I don't know, actually.
But you know, it doesn't have to be complicated or fancy. And I think the whole fast food industry has us believe that cooking homemade meals is expensive, it's complicated, it's hard work, but that's bollocks. Nothing is further from the truth.
It's beautifully simple.
And my art, I guess, is educating and empowering people how to make home cooked meals with ingredients that are ethically sourced, unprocessed as possible, bringing that home and teaching them how to prepare it into beautiful, nourishing meals that are nutrient dense, taste delicious, and really super simple, easy and quick to make. Like that's my craft, is cutting out, sort of renowned to cut out steps and make it as simple and easy as possible. And I just really want to drum that in, that nutrient dense doesn't mean time consuming. You know, making a 10-hour slow cook meal isn't 10 hours of effort. It's literally a single digit minutes of effort.
It itself, doesn't it, once you set it up?
To reap the rewards of 10 hours of, you know,
and
of
rewards,
cooking.
oh, it's so delicious. That's the other thing that I found amazing when my husband and I changed our diet, the flavour.
Oh, yeah. I feel like we like royalty 3 meals a day.
Exactly.
You know, you have bacon and eggs,
It's
you know, and
just
greens for
so
breakfast,
good.
and you have, you know, beautiful steak and greens and broth or
it is a
soup
joy.
for, you know, for dinner. And, you know, when I say to my health coaching clients, just get rid of the cardboard, you know, cereal and the, you know, the skim milk and the soy milk, and have full fat everything. And they're high-fiving me, you know, especially the blokes are like, whack, and eat bacon and eggs again. I can have full fat this, I can have butter, I can have cream.
Living the dream. Exactly.
And like living the dream, and you know what? The excess weight just fell melts away.
It's
like,
just a bonus.
You know, and when you become really in tune with your body, you become in tune with like the right amount of fat and protein and carbs. The food is so satiating that you become full very quickly.
Exactly.
You don't need to eat
hungry again for at least another half of the day.
5 to 7 hours minimum. If you can't go 5 to 7 hours in between meals, your meals are not big enough or nutrient dense enough, or something's going on where your body's not assimilating these beautiful nutrients.
And you must notice with so what would be one of the favourite sort of I know you've got oodles of testimonials of people just being reborn, basically. It's so profound, the change in their health. What would be one example of where someone's come to you and just said, look, what can I do? And for my family, have you had feedback from someone who's just their health is just completely transformed and they feel
lots and lots of that. I'm
that
trying
must
to
be
think
so rewarding.
I mean, this is why I love doing the work I do, because I feel like I'm helping people at the grassroots level, getting them to kick their medication, melt away like kilos and kilos of excess body fat, getting them to feel more vital and, you know, more energized, and just to feel alive, and that brain fog just goes to reveal who we truly are. And that is, as you were talking about before, just innately our birthright is to feel, I guess, at worst, just a sense of peace and neutrality. And at best, you know, just bliss and joy.
It's what we're designed to be.
Exactly, that's what that is our birthright, is to feel that sense of joy and happiness and bliss. And it's hard to feel that when your body is just layered and layered with toxins in all their guises: environmental toxins, dietary toxins, toxins that the body manufactures from stress. And then it sort of dumbs you down and dulls you out. But it's like peeling back the onion layers, as the Buddhists would say, when you peel back all those, you know, delusional thoughts and toxins in all their guises, and you peel it back, then you just reveal, you know, your true self. And that's, you know, a vibrant being that, you know, that shines with light. But, you know, one testimony I do remember is, you know, someone who couldn't have babies. This couple that tried everything, and they were on, you know, the standard American diet, the SAD diet, I call it. You know, and just getting them just to eat lots of, you know, nourishing food, animal fats, which they didn't have any animal fats in them, and then just getting her to ovulate again, and then just naturally fall pregnant and produce a beautiful baby that the doctor said, you two will never ever be able to have a baby, start looking at adoption or other things. And just, you know, just something.
The delivery of that news as well, and they're just doing their job, and it's not dismissive, but that lack of because my husband and I went through that kind of news as well, sitting opposite a specialist, and he very calmly wrote out, he diagnosed the menopause I think it was 40 at the time when it was officially diagnosed, and we wanted to have a family, but it was so surreal to both of us, because I think we were in a bit of shock at the same time, but he was writing out the script for the HRT, it was just matter-of-factly, that was the next step in this meeting we were having with this man. He passed it across the table to me, and he said, oh, and by the way, this will increase your risk of breast cancer. And I'm sure that's, you know, he's been in his role for many years, obviously, and maybe doesn't quite appreciate the impact that can have on people. But it seems to me that the nature of that almost cavalier way that he just said, oh, and by the way, you're going to get breast cancer if you start taking these drugs. That's something to take into consideration. Not to mention all the other crazy side effects that can occur with taking this stuff. It's like, oh my God. But there was something in us that just thought, no. That's because I'd imagine some people are quite willing to accept that information and not investigate. There must be another way.
Because the medical profession very much puts a lot of prevalence on your health are your genes, whereas we know from modern science now that our health has less to do with our genes and more to do with epigenetics, our lifestyle choices. But the medical profession, other than like a handful of doctors, they're not giving enough weight to these lifestyle choices that can radically alter the course of your life. So, you know, your genes aren't your destiny. They're like the loaded gun, and it's epigenetics that pulls the trigger. So really understanding, for me, this has been a journey of understanding what makes us tick and thrive. What are those lifestyle choices that profoundly impact our health, and really addressing them and dialing them in and turning the volume up on them and getting rid of the things that no longer serve us.
It's so important, isn't it? My other question is, so you provide so much joy to others through your business. It's just glows in every way, and the wonderful feedback that I've read on your website, the testimonials. But what's something that you find joy in? Something, you know, whether it be an activity or what brings you the most joy?
So many things. I don't know if I could limit it to one, but
Top three.
Okay, so top three would be spending time in nature. I just feel like I'm at home when I can't, because nature is where we belong. We're designed to work, live and play outdoors, not indoors in a built environment in artificial lighting. So I'm very fortunate I live by the beach. So in summer in particular, mandatory, have to get down by the beach. I love bushwalking and being out in nature. So taking that opportunity to be outside with Mother Nature. Secondly, I love showing my love through cooking for others. So having dinner parties and bringing people together. So I took after my mum in that regard. She was very skilled at, you know, bringing communities of people together, and I feel I enjoy that too when I see connecting people and bringing them together across a table with beautiful food that's made very, very simply, but where the quality of them is so amazing that it speaks for itself, and you don't need sauces and bells and whistles. It's just, you know, this is just real good quality
food.
And
nurturing
honest,
in it as well.
you know, just honest, wholesome food, you know, that our great grandparents would have made.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I guess the third thing is just recently got a kitten. And I'm not really an animal person, and it's been really surprising at how much joy this little fellow has brought into my life. And he's been such a good reminder of what we need really to survive, like to be happy. All he needs is love and affection, good food, clean water, and shelter, you know, and lots of love and affection, and he's happy, and you know, and obviously he moves and he stretches and he sleeps and he rests, and it's like, that's such a good reminder for us. If we've got good food, we've got water, we've got loved ones around us, and that physical touch and that affection, if we move and stretch, if we sleep and we rest, that's really what we need to be happy. Like, so
I love that.
He's just such a beautiful reminder for me. So
cats are amazing. We've got a cat as well, Whiskey, and I could watch her just sleep even, and I thought, wow, you've got it nailed. It's just they really show you how to be present as well in the moment to moment, and just
100%
really just try to be more aware that, you know, in this moment everything is great. You know, you've got the roof over your head, beautiful food, friends, family, a beautiful kitten, and that's essentially when you really focus down on being present, everything's fine, and all the other stuff that comes at you from all directions, whether it be the media or friends who get, you know, caught up in the news and all that sort of stuff. It's just a lovely sanctuary to come back to. It's always there for you. Be present, and you just know you just tap into something that is that lovely intuitive resilience that tells you you're going to be fine. So fine.
And being present reminds you that it's really important to take care of yourself. So I believe that no matter what crisis we're going through, whether it's a personal one, a global one, a real one, a perceived one, the most important thing you can do is to take care of yourself. Because when you take care of yourself, everything else takes care of itself. So if you take care of yourself by eating nourishing food, drinking filtered water, moving your body, connecting with loved ones, like all those, what I call those 8 foundations and pillars of health.
Yeah.
When you take care of yourself and your dependents, then you are not a burden to society, but an asset to society.
And you're equipped to...
And you are physically, emotionally, and spiritually equipped to deal with whatever comes your way. You've got that resilience and that strength and that fortitude to get through it. So when you take care of yourself, so the most important message I just would like to part on is take care of yourself. And I guess unfortunately people have different views on what taking care of themselves looks like, and but I believe that taking care of yourself really starts with the food you bring into your home, the quality of the water you're drinking, your mental thoughts, like what you're thinking about, like first and foremost, and staying positive, the amount of time you spend in nature and thinking about what you're putting on your body, what you're using to spray your house with. Taking care of yourself looks like breathing in clean air, connecting with loved ones, like all those pillars, what I call the 8 pillars of health. That's really how you're going to build strong immunity and resilience. That's going to get us through, this crisis. And we are at the threshold of a massive paradigm shift in global consciousness.
That's right.
And I think just like the caterpillar, this is an amazing opportunity or an invitation to metamorphosize and to transform and to shed what no longer serves us, to create space for the things that do serve us.
Oh, I love that. There's a whole new chapter awaiting anyone who chooses that and invests their energy forward rather than getting stuck in the misery that's seemingly around. But it's such you're right, the opportunity to really optimistically know that there's just a lovely way that you can live your life very simply and with nutrition.
Embrace simplicity. I love that.
Absolutely.
Simple pleasures, conscious consumption, replacing fear with love, and fear with faith and trust. That if I take care of myself and my dependents, everything's going to be okay.
And isn't it wonderful to have that always as a choice? It's always there available for you to choose it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because I think when there's a crisis, people tend to focus on the things that are not in their control. And when you focus, if you choose to focus on things that are not in your control, you will find plenty, I'm sure, particularly now.
Oh yeah.
But instead, if you focus on what is in your control, and that is your health and your lifestyle choices, I mean, that is really empowering. So encouraging and inspiring and empowering people, focus on what is in your control. Okay, and that is your health. That's the pillars, the 8 pillars of health, these lifestyle choices. Focus on that and everything else will take care of itself. Shed what no longer serves you. Get rid of toxins in all their guises, the dietary toxins, the seed oils, the refined sugar, the refined grains, all the artificial stuff. Get rid of toxins found in conventional personal care products, cleaning products, get rid of negative thoughts. And then that's going to create an enormous amount of space for all this nourishing all these nourishing things to just fill your life.
Yeah, gorgeous. I love that. And Soulla's website, it's staraniseorganic.com. And the 8 foundations of health that you talk about, the 8 pillars, that's
I've done blog posts on that.
Yeah.
So if you search 8 foundations of health or 8 pillars of health, I've done a few blog posts on that. All my online cooking classes are there for people that want to learn how to make this nourishing food, like bone broth and organ meats and slow cooks and healthy chocolate and gluten-free cakes.
Healthy chocolate, that's where you had
it
sounds wonderful.
It's all there, and food is medicine talks are also there, and that will be eventually going online too, so people from all around the world can access that.
How did you come up with the name Star Anise, by the way?
Oh God,
I was really curious about that.
Such an odd thing. It was just after my son was born, and I had was obviously on maternity leave from the law firm. We were just out at dinner with my mother's group, and someone just mentioned, she was in Perth and she went to a really beautiful restaurant called Star Anise, and I just stopped dead in my track.
Gorgeous.
And I just thought, that is such a beautiful name for a business. If I ever had a business one day, not that I even knew what it would be, I'm going to call it Star Anise. It's so odd. Like now, if I had to do it again,
you're a manifester. That's when you put it out there, it will come back to you.
Yeah, so it's just a pretty name. I mean,
it's gorgeous. I love it.
It is a beautiful aromatic spice as well. I mean, we love it.
Well, yeah, Star Anise in the broths as well. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and in tea.
Oh, I love that. So, thank you so much.
My absolute pleasure.
And also, if you happen to be in the area of Sydney, make your way over to Bronte to experience
Broth
the
Bar
Broth Bar and Larder.
Belgrade Street, Bronte.
Beautiful. 49 Belgrade Street.
Bronte.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching, everyone.